What's going on, everyone? We are live for Thursday night football. It's going to be a good one. The Houston Texans up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles in Houston. The Texans are 14-point underdogs in this game. I do feel compelled to take the Eagles against the spread in this game. If the Texans are able to pull this one out, I do think this would be one of the biggest upsets of all time. The undefeated Eagles up against the decimated Texans. No Brandon Cooks, no Nico Collins. The dead last run defense in the NFL against the number one offensive line in the NFL. I mean, this is a mismatch of all mismatches. How we doing? Those of you in the YouTube live, Yarjum, appreciate you being early. Shout out Brandon Kratz as well. Good evening. We got some interesting Thursday night questions tonight, and this is the toughest bye week of the season, if you ask me. We got 6 teams on bye this week, so you're going to have to make some tough decisions. If you're thinking about starting Tyron Johnson, you're probably pretty down bad, though. All right, Kenneth Gainwell or Kenyon Drake. Oh man, yeah, I think I would go. I think I would go Kenneth Gainwell over Kenyon Drake. I do have Gainwell and Scott as fringe starts tonight. I think they're both fringe starts. Like, I'm not saying you for sure need to start them in every league, but they are playing the dead last run defense in the NFL. They are 14-point favorites tonight. I mean, there's a good chance, and we've seen this in most of the Eagles games this season. There is a good chance that the Eagles they've already won the game in the fourth quarter, and that's going to be good news for Kenneth Gainwell. It's going to be good news for Boston Scott. So I do think they both are. Do you have any locks on over-unders? Yeah, so my free player prop tonight, it is Devontae Smith, over 53.5 receiving yards. I'm liking the value that we're getting on this one. Devontae Smith, guys, he has a little bit over a 25% target share this season. He's had a few games where he's out-targeted A.J. Brown. He's coming off a game, his least yardage of the season since week 4, only 23 yards, but he had a healthy 8 targets last week. I do think this could be a bounce-back game for Devontae Smith, and it could be one of those games after the monster A.J. Brown game last week that A.J. Brown just gets so much attention, and his prop line is like 25 yards higher than Devontae Smith, and they are seeing similar target totals this season. So I do like Devontae Smith over 53.5 receiving yards. We're live on TikTok. We're live on YouTube. Make sure you guys are smashing the subscribe and follow button. Sam Duvernay or Garrett Wilson. I'd prefer Garrett Wilson, even with Rashad Bateman injury out for the season. By the way, R.I.P. Bateman, R.I.P. Michael Thomas. We are live on TikTok and YouTube. I will admit the live stream quality is a little bit better on YouTube. The link to that is two presses away if you're on the TikTok live, right in the TikTok bio. Jonathan Taylor or Deion Jackson. Yikes. You hate to see it. You hate to see that comment week 9 in the NFL. We got to see if JT is playing. If JT is playing, then it's JT. If JT's not playing, though, Deion Jackson is probably a top 12 running back this week. Who is Eckler's backup? The direct backup to Austin Eckler. It was Sony, right? It was Sony Michel for a little while. It's Sony. I think it is Sony. Isaiah Spiller, Sony Michel. I think it's Sony. And then Isaiah Spiller. How do you feel about Fournette this week? Feeling pretty good about him overall against the Rams. It's not a great matchup, but he's been targeted so much. Before you get to Thursday night football questions, can we just talk about Jonathan Taylor? Yeah, so JT hasn't been practicing. Ankle injury for Jonathan Taylor. He re-aggravated it. It feels like the JT situation, it might not be great this season. He might not get to full health. This season, it's similar to the DeAndre Swift situation. It's tough to see. Obviously, he was the number 1 overall pick in most fantasy drafts, so I was taking CMC number 1 overall. Just a reminder, by the way, if you go back really quickly, 9 weeks ago, everybody knew CMC was going to get hurt. We all knew it, right? Everyone just knew because we have these magical powers to predict injuries, but we don't. This is the whole case for CMC number 1 overall is you didn't know who was going to get hurt. And here we are week 9, and JT is more banged up than CMC. Is Keenan Allen or DeAndre Swift playing? If so, are they a start? I do not think Keenan Allen is playing this week. I do think DeAndre Swift is playing. DeAndre Swift is probably still a start in most situations. But yeah, Keenan Allen, apparently somehow the bye week made his hamstring injury worse. I don't even know how that's possible. Do I start A.J. Brown? Yes. So let's just run through this game really quickly. And it's not looking like it's going to be such a great game. We got the best offensive line tonight against the dead last run defense. Really one of the best rushing offenses in the league against the worst run defense in the NFL. You got to start Miles Sanders tonight. For sure, you have to start Jalen Hurts tonight as well. He's a big part of that rushing attack. Also, you have to start Dameon Pierce. He's seeing 20-plus touches a game. He's really the only talented piece they have on offense, the Houston Texans. And you got to start A.J. Brown. I mean, did you watch A.J. Brown last week? We should see no A.J. Brown. Start-sit questions, really, for the rest of the season. If you watched his Week 8 performance, you know what A.J. Brown can do. He dropped a 40 bomb against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He only played 2/3 of the snaps, and this has happened in so many of the games for the Eagles, and it could happen tonight. And it might not be good for Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, and A.J. Brown if this happens. The Eagles just have a 2, 3, 4 score lead in the fourth quarter, and we see Gardner Minshew and Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell late in this game. But yeah, I still think all those guys are must starts. I still think Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith are must starts. Dallas Goedert is still better than almost all tight end options that you're going to be looking at. He's seen at least 5 targets in 4 straight games. He had 64 yards last week. He's now had over 60 yards in 3 out of his last 4 games. Devontae Smith, probably Dallas Goedert, probably top 5 tight end in fantasy football. He ranks number 7 in fantasy points per game this season. I mean, there's very few tight ends out there. So there's only a few tight ends I'd be playing over Dallas Goedert. Sanders or Mostert, I'm not benching Miles Sanders this week. You can't bench Miles Sanders. I mean, you just can't do it. He's probably a top 10 option this week against the dead last Houston Texans run defense. Let me just read you off some of these numbers to give you some confidence with Miles Sanders tonight. Miles Sanders is over-under, by the way, is right around 80 rushing yards. I do think he goes over that, but it is a pretty high line. Jonathan Taylor, week 1, he had 161 yards against the Texans. Week 2, Javonte Williams goes for 75 yards. Week 3, Khalil Herbert rips off over 150 yards against the Texans. Week 4, Austin Eckler had over 100 yards combined, rushing and receiving. Week 5, Travis Etienne goes over 100 rushing yards, over 100 total yards, rushing plus receiving. Week 7, Josh Jacobs, 140 rushing yards. And then last week, Derrick Henry rips off 219 rushing yards against the Houston Texans. I mean, they've just got destroyed by running backs this season. Why are we starting Goddard? Because Goddard has been a top 7 tight end this season. Will Cooks get released from the Titans to the Texans? No, he's not going to get released. He has a pretty big contract. It does not seem like he's going to get released. It honestly seems like this might be one of those situations Brandon Cooks might just be done. He might just sort of sit in the rest of the season or even just straight up retire. I don't think he's going to get released and he can't get traded. The trade deadline is passed. I'm 2-6. Joel is 2-6. By the way, if you're watching live on YouTube, smash the like button. Does help us out a ton. Really do appreciate that. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button. What's your confidence level in Dorsett? Yeah, I will talk a little bit about the Texans receivers in just a second. Let me get to this trade question, though, first. From Joel, Jamar and Jamal Williams for CD. My RBs are Kamara and Pierce. My wide receivers are Brown and Ayuk now. You're giving up Jamal and Jamar for CD. Yeah, I would do that 100%. You're 2-6. You got to get rid of Jamar Chase. I mean, there's no way around it. And I'm posting a video, I think, tomorrow. 10 players I'm buying and selling in fantasy football. Make sure you catch that on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss it. But you got to understand the strategy, the game theory in fantasy football right now at this point of the season. If you are not in the playoff picture, you have to do everything you possibly can do to get in the playoff picture, even if that means selling low on Jamar Chase, selling low on Jonathan Taylor, selling low on DeAndre Swift. Sell low on these guys if you are not in the playoff picture, because it's pretty straightforward. If you don't make the playoffs, then you can't win. So you have to optimize for making the playoffs, even if you are selling low and hurting your chances at winning in the playoffs. Because if you're not in the playoffs, what does it matter how good your team is in the playoffs? Once you're in the playoffs, though, the mindset completely shifts, and now you're on the buying end on some of those players, right? If you're 6-2 and you're almost a lock for the fantasy playoffs, now your mindset should be completely opposite. You should be totally optimizing for the best possible roster in the 3 weeks of the fantasy football playoffs. The rest of the regular season weeks, they don't even matter that much. Sam Goddard better than Everett this week. Yeah, I would play Goddard over Everett. I know Keenan's out. Keenan's probably out. Mike Williams is for sure out. I still like Goddard a little bit more than Everett. Hey, Sam, how you doing? Who do you think I could try to sell Debo for? I'd be going and looking for Christian Kirk. I bet you can get Kirk plus something else. I really like buying low on Christian Kirk right now. All right, I want to talk about the Texans receivers tonight because it is an ugly, ugly, ugly situation for the Texans receivers. They only have, I believe, at least according to their depth charts everywhere I've looked, they only have 3 active receivers tonight. It is Tyron Johnson, who has run exactly 1 route in each of the games that he's played in this season. So he's basically not played a single real game for the Texans this season. Then they have Philip Dorsett, who I think will be the leading receiver tonight, but him and Chris Moore, I think, are the clear top 2 receivers. And then Tyron Johnson is a pretty big step below that. I trust Philip Dorsett. I think Philip Dorsett was the most used last week, but Chris Moore was a little bit more used. before that. I mean, you're really rolling the die with any of these guys, though. I would not recommend starting any of them in a 10 or 12 team league. Philip Dorsett, though, I do think is the top option. So if you're going to play Texans receiver tonight, I do think it's Philip Dorsett. But part of the reason I have even less confidence in these receivers and why I think you kind of have to bench all these tight ends on the Texans too is they have 3 tight ends that I think will play tonight. And good luck guessing which one of those is going to be the tight end that's actually involved. We have O.J. Howard probably going to get some run tonight. Brevin Jordan probably going to get some run tonight as well. So it's pretty ugly all around for the Texans. One of those guys is going to end up outperforming their expectation. Again, my favorite bet is on Philip Dorsett. This would have been a team that really could have used John Mechie. But yeah, it's going to be Brevin Jordan, O.J. Howard, and Jordan Akins tonight. One of those guys could easily lead the Texans in receiving. It also could easily be Dameon Pierce. Rex Burkhead should be involved a little bit more tonight too, as well. I bet Rex Burkhead outperforms at least Tyron Johnson, for example. I mean, it's really bleak though out there for the talent level of the Texans. Yeah, I would definitely hold out hope for Tyquan Thornton over Chris Moore. I will say that the Pats are up against a really good Colts secondary this week, but yeah, I still like Thornton more than Chris Moore. What's up, Sam? Thoughts on JT for the rest of the season? I just traded for him. Yeah, so I would only trade for JT if I'm a lock for the fantasy playoffs because I'm pretty nervous that he might miss this week. I'm pretty nervous that he won't be at 100% for another few weeks. Sometimes these ankle injuries can really linger, especially if they're trying to play through them. But I still think JT has number 1 overall running back upside any week that he's fully healthy. And so if you're going to be in the fantasy playoffs, you're going to want Jonathan Taylor. So I still think he has a lot of value rest of the season. I would probably rank him top 15 rest of season still. But over the next 3 weeks, I think he's probably outside the top 15. Start Raheem Mostert or Devin Singletary. This one's close. I do think Devin Singletary against the Jets is pretty interesting. I also think the Dolphins have a pretty good matchup this week too, though. Let me pull this up really quickly. Mostert's value, though, it might take a hit with this Jeff Wilson signing. I think Jeff Wilson might be involved more than Chase Edmonds was. He does have that familiarity with the coaching staff. Let me pull up the Dolphins here really quickly. Yeah, they're up against the Bears. The Bears have been a really good matchup for running backs. Yeah, so I'd probably lean Mostert over Devin Singletary. Hey, Sam, Tunyon or Andrews? Yes, we don't know if Mark Andrews is going to play. It sounds like there's a very good chance he won't play. He's also playing on Monday night, so that makes it much more tough. Dorsett or Juju, I definitely go Juju over Dorsett. Jamal Williams or Dorsett, I definitely go Jamal Williams over Dorsett. I don't trust Dorsett very much. A.J. Brown's a must-start over Tyler Lockett, right? Yeah, he is. I think he definitely is. Swift or DK, I would probably lean DK Metcalf. This is a really sad start sit, but McCole Hardman, Tyquan Thornton, or Terrace Marshall, yeah, that is a pretty sad start sit. I mean, McCole Hardman did score 3 touchdowns in his last game, but honestly, I think Terrace Marshall's probably the safest bet there. Sanders or Pierce, here we go. A good Thursday night start sit question here. Miles Sanders, who's playing the dead last run defense in the NFL behind the best offensive line in the NFL, or Dameon Pierce, who's playing on an offense that has literally 0 talent outside of him. And he's going to see minimum 20 touches tonight. I still think I'd prefer Miles Sanders, though, given the game script. In a PPR league, I think there's a better argument for Dameon Pierce, but in a standard league, I think it's for sure Miles Sanders. App user for 2 years now. James, thank you so much, man. Really do appreciate that. That really does make me smile. And he's talking about the WalterPicks app. Of course, if I don't get to your start sits on any of these live streams, by the way, the best place to go is the WalterPicks app in the iOS and Android app store. I've been working on that app for a little over 2 years now, and it's been a ton of fun. It's really come a long way over the last 2 years, so it's been really cool to see, and it's going to help you with all your start sit decisions, all your trade decisions, all your daily fantasy decisions, all your player prop decisions. All right, my wide receivers are Chase and Williams now out. Assuming you mean Mike Williams there. Who do I go after with Josh Allen? Fields is my QB2. Yeah, so if you're looking for a wide receiver to go target, I really think the wide receiver to go target is Christian Kirk. I think that his value is as low as it could possibly be, given how much he's actually been used this season. I feel like Christian Kirk is closer to this elite tier of wide receiver ones, or right below that elite tier of wide receiver ones, than he is to this wide receiver 3 tier where I think he's currently being valued. Christian Kirk's averaging 7.5 targets per game, and his coaching staff is on record saying they want him to get 7+ targets a game. And he's coming off, the reason I really like buying low on Christian Kirk, he's coming off a stretch of the hardest stretch, 3-game stretch that any receiver probably will have this whole season. He played the Colts and the Broncos in 2 of his last 3 games. Those are the top 2 defenses against receivers this season. And in between those matchups, he played the Giants, who are also a top 10 defense against receivers this season. So I think he's been through a really tough stretch of matchups. I think he will bounce back very soon. And he still went over 10 points in 2 of those 3 games. Like, his floor is really good. I don't think we've seen the ceiling from Christian Kirk really since the first few weeks of the season. So I do like buying low on Christian Kirk overall. Who do you think I could start from waivers this week? There's a lot of guys. DeAndre Carter is certainly one of them. I think Deion Jackson, if he's still available, though, he could be a really, really good option if JT ends up not being able to play. Who do you pick to? Devontae Smith, Mostert, or Olave? Yeah, I'd probably go Mostert and Olave over Devontae Smith. I do really like the matchup for Mostert, and I'm not playing Devontae Smith over Olave. Zach Ertz or Chris Godwin? Definitely Chris Godwin. Deion Jackson or Thielen this week? It depends if JT plays. If JT plays, I would probably go Thielen. Mahomes or Hurts? Oh, that one's actually really close. Let me pull up the rankings here. I actually think I would go Mahomes over Hurts. And there's definitely a chance. Actually, by the way, I would definitely go Mahomes over Hurts. And I don't even need to look at my rankings. And I'm almost positive I have Mahomes over Hurts in my rankings. But I was just looking at this before I hopped on the live. The Texans have actually allowed the 3rd fewest points per game to quarterbacks this season. Fantasy points per game. They've allowed the 3rd fewest points per game to quarterbacks this season. I still like Jalen Hurts tonight for most people, but I don't think I'd play him over Patrick Mahomes. I don't think I'd play him over Lamar Jackson. I don't think I'd play him over Josh Allen. Matt Ryan has had the 2nd best fantasy day against the Texans this season. That came back in week 1 where he threw for 350. Justin Herbert's the only quarterback this season to go over 20 points against the Texans. And I think part of the reason is their run defense is just so astronomically bad that the quarterbacks just don't need to do much against them. They're just going to run and run and run and run. And they don't, even in the red zone, like they're not throwing much against the Texans because the run defense is so bad. So I think that the Jalen Hurts does have a little bit lower of a floor and ceiling tonight, especially if this game isn't close. A PPR, pick one, please. QB, Burrow, Tua, Fields. Yeah, this one's close. It really is close. I think that I'll pull up my QB rankings here really quickly. I do think I probably would go Burrow. Yeah, I would go Burrow. I would go Joe Burrow over Tua and Fields this week, even without Jamar. Andrews or Goddard. Yeah, you got to go Goddard. There's a good chance Andrews does not play, and he plays Monday night, so you have to try to out Dallas Goddard. Cook and D-Hop for Jay Jettas. Yeah, 1,000%. I would do that trade for Justin Jefferson. Will Hubbard affect Devonta? Is that what you're asking here? Will Chuba Hubbard affect? I'm assuming you mean, will Chuba Hubbard affect Deonta Foreman? And yes, he will. Chuba Hubbard will affect Deonta Foreman. He's going to take most of the pass catching work away from Deonta Foreman and some of the carries as well. Is Lenny a must trade? No, he's not a must trade, but he definitely is a guy that I would consider trading. I think his ceiling and floor seem to be declining as the weeks go on. Rachaad White has looked pretty good too. He's definitely struggled in the running game this season. B-Rob, Pacheco, Chuba Hubbard, Scott, White, start A-Rob, Dorsett, Carter, or Marshall, Mariota, or Fields. We got 3 different start sits in this one comment, Max. I do appreciate everyone in this live, by the way. Make sure you're hitting that like button if you're watching live on YouTube. Hit the follow button if you're watching live on TikTok. I really do appreciate that. Pascal, a spot start. Is Pascal playing tonight? I didn't even think Pascal was on the roster. He's on the Eagles. Sorry. Yeah, no. Pascal's not a spot start tonight. I would probably go with B-Rob over all of these guys. And then maybe Boston Scott. I might go B-Rob, Boston Scott over Rachaad White, over Chuba Hubbard, over Isaiah Pacheco. I do think Boston Scott has a pretty good chance at a touchdown tonight. Again, league worst run defense, and they're 14-point favorites. There's a good chance Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell are the only running backs for the Eagles playing in the fourth quarter. Start A-Rob, Dorsett, Carter, or Marshall. Yeah, you got to go A-Rob. And I think Carter, A-Rob and Carter are the 2 that definitely stand out to me of those 4 guys. And then Mariota or Fields. Yeah, I think I'd lean towards Fields over Mariota at this point. Someone in my league wants Kenneth Walker for Justin Jefferson. They want Kenneth Walker, and you're going to get Justin Jefferson. I mean, you got to do it. Instantly do it. Even if you don't have RB depth, as long as you have confidence that you can flip one of your receivers for a running back, you got to flip Kenneth Walker for Justin Jefferson, 1,000%. Tay and Monty for Pittman. I don't know if I saw the other side of that. Oh, for Mixon and Pittman. Tay and Monty for Mixon and Pittman. It's a pretty fair trade, but I think I would prefer the Devontae Adams side of that trade. Rondale Moore or DJ Moore. Yeah, it's got to be DJ Moore, in my opinion, over Rondale Moore. Sam, trade Ramondre and Ayuk for Dalvin Cook, full PPR. Yep, I would do this one too. I would take Dalvin Cook's side of this trade. And Ramondre has been great. Ramondre has the James White role too in this Patriots offense. Don't see very many people talking about that. But Mondre is getting a lot of targets. I mean, a ton of targets in this Patriots offense. But I still prefer Dalvin Cook to him rest of the season. And Ayuk's not enough to move the needle for me. Pick one, Mostert, Chuba, Gus. Yeah, definitely go Mostert in that one. Hey, Sam, third season with you and the app. Griffin, thanks, man. Pick two between DeAndre Carter, London, Alec Pierce, Terrace Marshall. Yeah, I would go DeAndre Carter. Drake London is so tough to trust. At this point, it is kind of a decent matchup for Drake London. I think honestly, though, I'd probably go Alec Pierce over Drake London. Let me pull up my receiver rankings here. I probably do have London ranked ahead of him. Let's see. Yeah, I do. You got to go London and Carter. And it's so tough with Drake London, right? Because Drake London has not done anything for quite some time now, right? Drake London. Let me pull up the numbers for Drake London really quickly. But it's been a tough go for Drake London, and it's really not his fault. It's just he's on a team that does not throw. Drake London actually has the 9th highest target share in the NFL, but his team does not throw. He's the 9th highest target share, but he's the 36th most targets. But he is still seeing 6 targets a game. I still think I would probably play Drake London in that situation. It's not a bad spot for Drake London this week against the Chargers. They likely will be down in that game. But yeah, Drake London hasn't gone over 10 fantasy points since week 3. So he certainly has a low floor. All these guys have low floors. Do I drop Pacheco to add Gus? I think I'd prefer Pacheco over Gus still. I still think there's some interesting ceiling with Pacheco. I have JT. I traded Kamara for him a month ago. Can you give me a range of RBs to trade for? I currently have Eckler and Kareem, but I'm 3-5, only 1 game out from the last playoff spot. Yeah, so you got to trade JT, I think, in this situation. Some running backs that could be interesting to target. Let me pull up the rest of the season rankings here in front of me. I do think that there's a very, very small list of running backs that are really worth very much in fantasy right now. I think that one of the running backs that's being slept on a little bit is Michael Carter. I know that they did just trade for James Robinson, but I still think Michael Carter is going to lead that backfield, and they do have a pretty good fantasy football playoff schedule. You should be able to get something in addition to that, obviously, if you're trading away Jonathan Taylor. I also don't hate trading for seeing if you can get Travis Etienne, seeing if you can get Kenneth Walker. I mean, these guys are probably valued higher in your league than Jonathan Taylor. I also would prefer Miles Sanders probably to Jonathan Taylor right now. Obviously, that's going to be tough to pull the trigger on, though, with only so much time left. There's very few running backs really with consistent value, though. It's sort of the bottom line. I also think this is kind of the lowest point in A.J. Dillon's fantasy value that you could possibly find. I don't hate A.J. Dillon this week against the Lions. I think he could have a decent week against a pretty bad Lions defense. Boyd or Devontae Smith, that one's definitely really close. I think I would go Boyd, though, over Devontae Smith. Boyd has just a really, really safe floor and similar ceiling. Hey, Sam, would you trade Pierce and McLaurin for Barkley and Cooks? Oh, this one's close, Devin. If you're starting Terry McLaurin, it's definitely pretty close. I certainly would prefer Saquon Barkley over Dameon Pierce. Brandon Cooks, though, there's a real chance Brandon Cooks does not play again this season. But yeah, I still think I would do it. Especially if you're not starting or needing to start Terry McLaurin. We have Saquon Barkley, number 2 running back rest of season, only after Christian McCaffrey. I have Sutton, Thielen, Boyd, Lockett, Godwin. Do I need to make a move? No, I mean, that seems pretty solid to me. I'm actually really high on Chris Godwin, too. I think he's one of my favorite buy low candidates right now. Trade Curtis for Tyler Boyd. Yeah, Curtis Samuel for Tyler Boyd, I 100% would do that. Should I trade Najee for Montgomery? Oh, God, man. I mean, they're pretty comparable, in my opinion. It feels like Khalil Herbert's becoming more and more involved as well, for good reason. Khalil Herbert has been one of the most efficient running backs, if not the most efficient running back in the NFL this season. Khalil Herbert is number 5 in the NFL in yards per touch this season. He saw 16 carries last week, but he only played a fourth of the snaps. I actually think I would prefer David Montgomery over Najee Harris. Trade Justin Jefferson and Justin Herbert for Mahomes and Waddle. This one seems pretty fair to me, too. I think I would prefer the Jefferson side. I usually prefer the side getting the better receiver as opposed to the better quarterback, but I would prefer Mahomes for sure over Herbert rest of the season. So it seems pretty fair to me, but I think I would prefer the Justin Jefferson side still. Jefferson was still one of the most valuable players in all of fantasy football. Duvernay or Foreman at flex. It depends if Chuba Hubbard plays. If Chuba Hubbard plays, I do think Duvernay is probably a better option. Thoughts on Andrews? Yeah, we don't know if Mark Andrews is going to play. So he's a really, really big risk. If you have Mark Andrews, you kind of need to go add Isaiah Likely as a backup option. Miles Sanders or Swift or Olave at flex. Yeah, you got to go Miles Sanders. I really think you got to go Miles Sanders in this matchup. This is the best possible matchup for Miles Sanders. There's not a better matchup for Miles Sanders. He's playing the dead last run defense in the NFL. So, yeah, I think you got to start Miles Sanders tonight. I pretty strongly feel like you got to start Miles Sanders tonight. If you're looking for the free player prop of the night, by the way, I really do like Devontae Smith over 53.5 receiving yards tonight. And this is less about me feeling like a big game's coming for Devontae Smith, and honestly more about me just feeling like they set this line just simply too low. This line's like 22 yards below where A.J. Brown's line is at, and they're seeing similar target totals this season. Devontae Smith, 25% target share. A.J. Brown, 30% target share this season, and their lines are 22 yards apart. Devontae Smith coming off one of his worst games of the season. I do think he bounces back tonight, and I think he sees another 6, 7, 8 targets tonight. He should easily be able to clear this line if he sees that target volume. Kenneth Walker for Dameon Pierce, full PPR. Yeah, this one's super close to me, super close. I kind of like Kenneth Walker just a little bit more because of the defense of the Seahawks and how these games for the Seahawks have been playing out. The Seahawks have been in a lot more higher scoring games than the Texans have been in. So I think I do prefer Kenneth Walker to Dameon Pierce rest of the season, but both rookies are really, really good options and really close. Is Eckler going to be out? No, I don't think Eckler is going to be out. I did see that he was added to the injury report. So obviously something to monitor closely as we get closer to Sunday. But yeah, I do think Eckler, he was added to the injury report with an abdominal injury, but he still got a limited session in, so he didn't miss the whole practice. Cam Akers, by the way, is practicing in full. Brandon Cooks officially inactive tonight. Nico Collins was already ruled out. Chris Moore and Philip Dorsett, the top 2 wide receivers on the depth chart. Dameon Pierce, Rex Burkhead, probably going to lead the team, though, in touches. Trey Sermon, inactive for the Eagles. Not much to read about there. Should I trade away Jonathan Taylor in a dynasty league? I'm 2-6. Yeah, I think you should. I think that's not a horrible idea, but JT is going to have value next season too. So I wouldn't give him away for nothing. You got to get at least a first round pick and something more for JT. Hey Sam, should I start Devontae Smith or Jacoby Myers alongside AJ Brown? I would go Devontae Smith over Jacoby Myers. Even though you're playing AJ Brown, I still think the right thing to do is to start Devontae Smith over Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers has a really tough matchup this week against the Colts. I think the Colts or the Broncos. They're both the top 2 defenses against receivers this season. It is a tough spot for Jacoby Myers this week, as consistent as he has been. Goddard or Ertz? I'm pretty sure you got to go Zach Ertz, actually, with that one. The Cardinals are up against the Seahawks this week again. They get the Seahawks again this week, and the Seahawks have been just horrible against tight ends this season. I mean, they have not stopped a single tight end. So, yeah, I would go with Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz, last time he played the Seahawks, he did have 14 points, 10 targets, 70 yards, 7 catches. I mean, it's pretty solid from Zach Ertz. I would play Zach Ertz over most tight ends this week against the Seahawks. Dallas Goedert, Tyler Higbee this week. Yeah, I think I'd go Goddard over Higbee tonight. Let me pull up the tight end rankings just to be sure here, though. Yeah, we have Goddard. Yeah, you got to go. The only tight ends I'm starting over Goddard, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, if he plays, obviously. But I would play Goddard over Andrews, too, because I don't know if Andrews is actually going to play. This is also one of those situations for the Ravens. Next week, they have the bye. They have the bye next week. So there's a lot of incentive to just give Andrews a full 2 weeks to get him fully healthy. I would only be playing Zach Ertz, really, and Travis Kelce over Dallas Goedert this week. I would not play Tyler Higbee over Dallas Goedert. Trade Lamar and G-Hop for Mahomes and Kamara. Yeah, this one I would 1,000% do. You're getting both of the better players in the trade. Mahomes is more valuable than Lamar rest of season, in my opinion, and then Kamara is more valuable than D-Hop rest of season too. So I do like it. I'm 3-5. Should I trade Jamar? First of all, I'm not even going to read the rest of the comment yet. Yes. If you're 3-5, if you have a losing record and you have Jamar Chase, if you have a losing record and you have DeAndre Swift, if you have a losing record and you have Jonathan Taylor, or some of the other guys that are battling through injuries, you have to trade low. You got to trade low. You got to get into the playoffs. You got to sacrifice the upside of these guys later in the season to get into the playoffs. Because if you don't get into the playoffs, then what's the point of holding on to these guys? All right, let's look at the trade, though. You're trading him for McLaurin and Kirk. Yeah, I would do it. McLaurin, Kirk, pull the trigger on that. I like both those guys a decent amount rest of season. I really like buying low on Christian Kirk, too. I think I prefer McLaurin and Kirk over Juju. It is pretty close, but also with the Kadarius Toney signing, we got no Kadarius Toney. questions. I've seen nothing about Kadarius Toney. No one's talking about Kadarius Toney. I might have to make a video about Kadarius Toney sometime soon. It feels like everyone's like, it's Kadarius Toney. Like he's just going to hurt his hamstring and we'll never see him again. But he's practicing. Guys, Kadarius Toney's practicing really for the first time basically this entire season. And people forget Kadarius Toney is good. Kadarius Toney is very good. He is Percy Harvin 2.0 in my mind. We've seen Kadarius Toney be very, very talented on the football team, on the football field as a rookie. Now he's on the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes and he's practicing. I don't know. There's some real upside there, I think, with Kadarius Toney. I don't think it's going to be a super consistent upside, just like most of the options for the Chiefs. They really are spreading the ball around to tease them out. But I'm seeing some big games in the future for Kadarius Toney. I do think he should be rostered in all leagues if he really is healthy and practicing. Should I trade Swift and Kirk for Stevenson, Mike Will, and Claypool? Nope. I don't think I would do that one. I do think I would prefer Stevenson over Swift right now. So it's a fair trade, but Mike Williams, he's out for a while. And Chase Claypool is on the Bears. The Bears barely throw the ball, and it might take a little bit for him to get up to speed with the Bears too. CMC, Evans, McLaurin, and Marquise Brown for Justin Jefferson, ETN, Stevenson, and Pittman. Wow, that's a blockbuster trade. I mean, I'm pretty sure there was 2 players like not even playing in the rest of the season. If you're giving up CMC, you better get only starters in return though. Like if you're getting 4 starters for 2 starters and you're giving up CMC, but you're getting ETN in return, I do feel like that's a pretty fair trade to give up CMC. Though I will say CMC, in my mind, the number 1 most valuable player in fantasy football right now is Christian McCaffrey. Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin, or Sanders, pick 3, standard scoring. Standard scoring, that is very good to know because you got to start Sanders. There's very, very few options better than Miles Sanders in standard scoring. His over-under is 80 rushing yards. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about Miles Sanders in standard scoring. Miles Sanders, I think I would probably go Kenneth and Miles Sanders and probably Kamara. And then I'd probably bench Dalvin, I think, in that one. Pierce or Mostert. Yeah, I think that's what I would do. I think I would bench Dalvin. I would go Kenneth, Alvin, and Sanders and bench Dalvin. Pierce or Mostert. Yeah, you got to go Pierce. You got to go Pierce over Mostert. Pitts or Ingram. I'm assuming you mean Evan Ingram. And yeah, I would go Kyle Pitts over Evan Ingram. Hurts or Muhammad. I'm assuming you mean Mahomes. There, the autocorrect is out there tonight. Yeah, so I'm starting Mahomes over Jalen Hurts. Here are the quarterbacks I'm starting over Jalen Hurts this week. I'm starting Josh Allen over him. I'm starting Patrick Mahomes over him. I'm starting Lamar Jackson over him. That's the end of the list. The Texans have allowed the 3rd fewest points per game to quarterbacks this season, but they've allowed the 12th most yards to quarterbacks. So they just haven't allowed very many touchdowns. But that is something to take note of because the Texans' run defense is so bad that teams just don't need to throw in the red zone. There's no reason to risk throwing in the red zone against the Texans. Just run it 3 times, and you're probably going to score. That's been the formula against the Texans, and I see the Eagles doing exactly that in this game with the NFL's best offensive line. Should I trade T. Higgins for Mark Andrews? I have Smith to fill the spot in. Yes. Definitely do this trade. I think this is a pretty good deal. Andrews is a guy that I do really like trading for too. I know he's dealing with an injury right now, but Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews are in a tier of their own in fantasy football. So if you are a good shot at the fantasy football playoffs, I do like trading for Mark Andrews right now. Devontae Smith or Christian Kirk. Yeah, that one's really close. I think I would prefer Christian Kirk over Devontae Smith this week. And honestly, rest of season probably as well. Trade Sutton for Gabe Davis. No, I would not trade Sutton for Gabe Davis. Jones or Fournette. Definitely Aaron Jones over Fournette. Devontae Smith or Allen Lazard. I would go Devontae Smith over Allen Lazard. I would play Tyler Boyd over Josh Palmer as well. George Pickens season. Yeah, George Pickens was also quietly one of the biggest winners of maybe not as quietly as Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I also think was a big winner of the NFL trade deadline moves. But yeah, George Pickens, a huge winner of the NFL trade deadline moves. Who would you rather start, Palmer or Boyd? Yeah, I would start Boyd over Palmer. Trade Lamar/Sutton for Brady/Debo. Don't love this one. I'm not going to lie. Don't love this one. And I really do think Lamar Jackson has maybe the best fantasy football playoff schedule among all quarterbacks. I'm not sleeping on that. Lamar could win fantasy leagues. Lamar started the season really hot. I think he could finish the season really hot too. So if you can get to the fantasy playoffs with Lamar, I think he could win fantasy leagues more so than Tom Brady will. Should I try to trade Diggs for Hopkins and Olave? Fair trade. Diggs is for sure the best player in that trade though. So if you're starting both Hopkins and Olave though, I think it is fair. Swift or Kenneth rest of season? It's got to be Kenneth. It's got to be Kenneth with the ongoing injuries for Swift. And the other thing with Swift is the Lions are not in the playoff picture. I mean, there's very little reason for the Lions to rush Swift back. And that's only going to become more and more true as the lines fall further and further out of the playoff picture in the NFL. So, yeah, I do like Kenneth more than DeAndre Swift because of the DeAndre Swift injury. Thoughts on Josh Reynolds? Should I pick up Hines or should I keep him? Yeah, I would drop Josh Reynolds and pick up Nyheim Hines. Thielen or Deion Jackson, James Conner. Yeah, I would probably play Thielen over Deion Jackson, but we got to see if JT plays. If JT plays, then Deion Jackson's a lot riskier. If JT doesn't play, Deion Jackson's a must-start player. Hey, Sam, who do I start, Juju or Devontae Smith? I would go Devontae Smith over Juju. Chris Olave or Mike Evans? That one's really close. Definitely really close. I got to pull up the rankings here to answer that one. I think I would go. We have Chris Olave one spot ahead of Mike Evans. It's a really good spot for Chris Olave. Chris Olave, by the way, Chris Olave's season has been going on, and it's only going to keep going on with the Michael Thomas end of season toe injury for Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas has missed 40 of the last 50 games that the Saints have had. Michael Thomas is going to have missed 40 of the last 50 Saints games over the last 3 years. I mean, just brutal for Michael Thomas. Yeah, but I'm not benching Chris Olave. We have Chris Olave ranked number 11 this week. Is Sutton for Olave a good trade? Yeah, I do like that. Yo, who should I start? Questionable Eckler, Sanders, Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones. Who do I sit? Yeah, you definitely, you don't have to decide till Sunday. Like, wait and see what the Eckler news is, but you should start Miles Sanders tonight. You should start Miles Sanders tonight. You're the best, Sam. Love your logic. I got you, man. Appreciate the positivity, man. Hey, Sam, my friend offered me Stevenson or Swift. Who would you take for the rest of the season? Yeah, I think I mentioned this briefly in a previous comment. I think I would take Stevenson over Swift. And again, there's a lot of risk to Swift right now. I don't hate trying to trade Swift. He did score last week, so his fantasy performance did look terrible. I still think Swift is going to be really good when he sees his full workload, but it really feels like it might be a little bit of a lost season for Swift. And it might be like week 1 was really the only week DeAndre Swift saw a full workload. That was the only week he played over 51% of the snaps for the Lions. It was the only week he had more than 10 carries this season. And what happened in week 1? He had 175 yards and a touchdown. He was the number 3 running back in week 1. That was DeAndre Swift. But we haven't seen that because he's been hurt, and he's still hurt. And the Lions are now out of the playoff picture. So I don't know. I would prefer Stevenson over Swift. Stevenson at least has the James White role, and at least he's fully healthy. So I do think I would prefer Stevenson, Mondre season over DeAndre Swift at this point. Duvernay or Nyheim Hines. I would go Duvernay over Hines. It's tough. All the players that were just traded to their team, I would not trust them in the first game. Kadarius Toney, Nyheim Hines, all the players that were traded at the trade deadline. Chase Claypool, you can't trust them. I don't think you can trust them. Even TJ Hawkinson, like it's just you got to give them some time to get up to speed on their team. There's a very good chance they don't play their full allotment of snaps that they'll usually play in their first game. Duvernay or Hines, better pickup to keep. I still think probably Duvernay. With Bateman's injury, I think Duvernay over Hines rest of season. I would prefer Palmer or Devontae Smith. Definitely Devontae Smith, in my opinion. I do like Devontae Smith's prop tonight, too. That is the free player prop of the night, is Devontae Smith over 53.5 receiving yards. Devontae Smith has quietly, low-key, seen similar target volume to A.J. Brown this season. It started pretty quiet. He had a 0-point donut in week 1, but he still had 4 targets in that game. He's at least 4 targets in every single game, so he's got a solid floor. But we've also seen him go 8+ targets in 3 of his last 5 games. He's had a 25% target share this season. That's pretty strong. I do like Devontae Smith to go over 53.5 receiving yards tonight. He's done that in 3 of his last 6. And I do think he will not be getting nearly as much attention as A.J. Brown coming off A.J. Brown's last game. Always appreciate the help, Sam. I got you, Michael. Thank you for tuning in, man. I do appreciate you as well. Devontae Smith, Tyler Boyd, or Amon-Ra. It's got to be Amon-Ra. It's got to be Amon-Ra. I'm all in on Amon-Ra rest of the season. I think Amon-Ra is another guy that you really got to be buying into. And again, I'm dropping a YouTube video either tomorrow or Saturday about 10 guys I'm either buying or selling as we approach the fantasy football trade deadline. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of those guys I'm going to talk about in that video. You got to be buying Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, there's no way around it. He's one of the biggest winners of the trade deadline move. That TJ Hawkinson trade, huge win for Amon-Ra, who quietly saw 10 targets last week, quietly back to full health, is Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I think is a top 10 wide receiver rest of season and a top 10 wide receiver this week. At full health, guys, we've only seen Amon-Ra St. Brown really just ball out in the NFL. So, yeah, I really like Amon-Ra this weekend, rest of the season. Tab, man, good to see you back in the live. Should I trade ETN and Pittman for JT and CD Lamb? Man, this one's a really tough one. CD Lamb, certainly I prefer over Michael Pittman rest of the season. So you're getting a big upgrade at wide receiver. Hopefully this is a PPR league too. I definitely don't want JT in place of Travis Etienne though. And I would really only do this trade if you're a lock for the fantasy football playoffs, because otherwise you're really acquiring a really risky asset in Jonathan Taylor. We have Travis Etienne ranked really, really highly rest of the season. Let me pull up the rest of the season rankings here for a second. Travis Etienne is ranked number 7 rest of season, and Jonathan Taylor we still have at number 10, but there's definitely some risk there with the ankle injury. So Chad, I'd only do this if you're very confident you'll be in the fantasy playoffs, because what you don't want to do is make a trade that makes it less likely for you to be in the playoffs. Again, you got to optimize for making the playoffs first, then optimize for winning the playoffs. Once you're in the playoffs, your mindset should completely shift. Then I would definitely consider a trade like this. But if you're not in the playoffs yet, I'd be pretty cautious making this move. What is Eckler's injury? It's an abdominal injury. I don't really know exactly the details of that, but I will say he still practiced today. He was limited participant in practice. So it's a new injury. You know, you hate to see new injuries at this point in the week, but he still practiced on a limited basis. I do think he will play, but obviously something to watch. Do you like Kenyon Drake? No, I don't like any of the Ravens running backs because it's a constant rotation in that backfield, and none of them catch passes. And all of them could lose goal line touchdowns to Lamar at any given point too. So I don't like really any of the Ravens running backs for fantasy. Hurts and Pitts for Brady and Amon-Ra. Yeah, this one I would do. I would do this one. You're downgrading at QB, but Pitts to Amon-Ra, I mean, that's just an insane upgrade. I don't hate this one at all. I think I would prefer Amon-Ra over just Hurts straight up. And that's basically what this trade to me is. Have a ton of buys this week. Yeah, Dylan, me too. I'm down pretty bad in some of my leagues. And when I draft, I completely ignore bye weeks. I don't care about bye weeks when I'm drafting. I just want to draft the best players. And at this point in the season, sometimes that does come back to bite me. Jeff Wilson, Brian Robinson, Darren Waller, or DeMarcus Robinson, full PPR. Yeah, you guys know my stance. I refuse to start 2 tight ends. It's just like, it's so bleak out there in the tight end world. Like, don't do it to yourself. Don't start 2 tight ends. I know sometimes it feels like it makes sense. It doesn't make sense. I'm telling you, don't start 2 tight ends. I would go Brian Robinson, though, I think pretty easily in this one. DeMarcus Robinson's definitely interesting. He was their top targeted receiver last week. I still think Duvernay probably out-targets him, though, and out-touches him in this offense. Deshaun Jackson might be active. I don't think he'll be very involved, though. But yeah, I think Brian Robinson's probably going to get the most touches among all of these guys. And again, I don't think you should trust guys that were just traded to their new team this week. It usually takes a week or 2 for them to get up to full speed and assume their full roles. Think I can trade Brady and Jay Jettas for A.J. Brown and Allen or Herbert full PPR? Yeah, it's worth a try. I would do that. I would like that trade for you if you get Brady, if you give up Brady and Justin Jefferson and you get A.J. Brown and Josh Allen. But I don't think I would do it for Justin Herbert. You got to be getting Josh Allen if you're going to be giving up Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is one of the most valuable assets in all of fantasy football. Even though he's coming off somewhat of a down week, he still had over 90 yards. A down week for Justin Jefferson, he went over 90 yards. Do you like more? Oh, this happens every live, man. It happens every live. And I'm going to assume you're talking about DJ Moore. But there are a lot of Moores. We got Sky Moore. We got Rondale Moore. We got DJ Moore. We got Elijah Moore. And I didn't even name all the Moores. I promise you there's more Moores than that. But yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about DJ Moore. I get Fournette, Kelsey, and A.J. Brown and get Saquon Kirk Samuel or Gabe Davis and Hayden Hurst. Should I do it? No, I would not do this one. You got to hold on to Kelsey and A.J. Brown, I think. You are getting a huge upgrade at running back. The Deebo Samuel situation is really tough to get a read on. Let me pull up the Deebo stuff because that also has a huge impact on this trade. You got to be really careful trading for Deebo also if you are not in the fantasy football playoff picture. They said he was day-to-day, but it's a hamstring injury, man. These hamstring injuries can really, really be tough to come back from. They are on bye this week, though, so he probably will be back in week 10. So the more I look at this trade, the more I don't hate it. But yeah, I don't like giving up Kelsey. I don't think I would do this. How's it going, Sam? What wide receivers could I get Aaron Jones for? What wide receivers could I get for Aaron Jones? Is that what you're saying? I also got offered Jay Jettas to give up Chubb and Terry. I get Justin Jefferson. You're giving up Chubb and Terry. I would do that trade. I would take Justin Jefferson if you're giving up Chubb and Terry, especially if you're looking for a running back. I have Thielen already in my lineup, so I don't know what to do. Yeah, I don't love Thielen and Justin Jefferson, but that doesn't mean I don't like Justin Jefferson. I would just try to move Thielen. I would take Justin Jefferson. I would do that trade, Chubb and Terry, for Justin Jefferson. Again, I think Justin Jefferson is one of the most valuable assets in fantasy football rest of season. Hey, Sam, start Pierce or take the risk of starting Joshua Palmer over him. No. Do not take that risk. You got to start Dameon Pierce. Anytime in fantasy football, you can lock in a guy that's almost guaranteed 20-plus touches as long as he stays healthy. you got to start that guy. And that's exactly what we have in Dameon Pierce. I mean, he's been so consistent with his touches. He's extremely talented. He's also the only talented player on his entire offense. So he's in sort of a DJ Moore type situation there in Houston tonight. But yeah, he's had at least 18 touches now in 5 straight games with at least 18 touches. You got to assume he's going at least 18 touches again tonight. I think his over-under for carries actually that I saw was 16, and he's going to see some targets too. He's seen at least 4 targets now in 4 straight games. So you got to be starting Dameon Pierce 100%. Hey, Sam, opinion on Rondale Moore, Evan Ingram, and DeAndre Carter this week? Yeah, I mean, all are definitely startable with the brutal bye weeks. This week, Rondale Moore, he's coming off, I think, his best game of the entire season, and it feels like DeAndre Hopkins has opened up a little bit of room for Rondale Moore. The DeAndre Hopkins, I got to admit, he's improved the Cardinals offense more than I expected he would. I thought the Cardinals offense was really bad without him. I didn't think he was going to fix all their problems. He hasn't fixed all the problems, but he's fixed some of the problems for the Arizona Cardinals. And yeah, Rondale Moore is coming off his best game of the season. He had 23.4 PPR points last week, 8 targets, 7 catches, 92 yards, plus he scored a touchdown. I mean, he's definitely startable this week against the Seahawks. Evan Ingram has continued to be having a breakout season. This has been Evan Ingram's best season really since I think his first year in the league. And then DeAndre Carter, no Keenan Allen, most likely no Keenan Allen, and no Mike Williams. So yeah, DeAndre Carter is definitely startable this week too. What do you think about the Eckler injury? I'm not that concerned about it. It's always a little concerning when an injury pops up midweek, but he did still practice on a limited basis today. So that's a very good sign, I think, for Austin Eckler and his hopes of playing this week. We got someone in the YouTube live saying, pick up Sony Michel. Sony Michel is the backup running back, the direct backup to Austin Eckler. So if you are concerned about the Eckler injury, then he's the one to go. Why Gainwell? Yeah. Gainwell and Boston Scott do have some legs tonight. I think that they are both fringe starts that in fantasy football if you're really desperate on these bye weeks. Kenneth Gainwell has played over 20% of the snaps every single game he's played in this season for the Eagles. And he gets a matchup tonight against the dead last run defense in the NFL in a game that the Eagles are favored by 14 points on the road. A similar story for Boston Scott. Boston Scott's going to play a little bit tonight, and he's again against the dead last run defense in the NFL. Both these guys are running behind the number 1 offensive line in the NFL. Both Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott could easily vulture a Miles Sanders touchdown tonight, and that makes them fringe starts, in my opinion, especially with 6 teams on bye this week. I'm not saying either of them are locks, though. Either of them could easily score under 5 points. But if this game gets out of hand, which it easily could, most of the Eagles games have. Most of the Eagles games are over in the fourth quarter, in the beginning of the fourth quarter. If that happens tonight as 14-point favorites, I do think Kenneth Gainwell and or Boston Scott could provide some value in fantasy this week. Devontae Smith or DeAndre Swift. Yeah, this one's tough. I think I actually would go Devontae Smith, though, over DeAndre Swift. I feel like they will be up by so much. They will not give them rushing attempts, but red zone touches, and he will get a rushing TD. Yeah, definitely possible. Definitely possible for both Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell to find the end zone tonight. Everett or Ingram, I'd probably go Gerald Everett with all the injuries to Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. With JT out, Deion Jackson or Foreman. If JT is out, I'm playing Deion Jackson over Deontay Foreman, 100%, especially if Chuba Hubbard's back in. But we don't know JT's out yet. And I do think they're going to try to play JT. What's up, Sam? How's it going? Noah, trade Waddle for Amon-Ra. Trade Olave, Devontae, or Romeo Dobbs at flex. This is actually a really interesting one. I mean, obviously, Waddle's been great this season. It's not a guy that's easy to give up. I do want to pull up our rest of season rankings, though, see which guys ranked ahead. We actually have Waddle one spot, just a tiny bit ahead of Amon-Ra, so I don't think I'd do this trade, but I do think it's extremely fair. And I don't really want to be trading Olave, no. I would play Devontae Smith over Romeo Dobbs, though. I would play Devontae Smith over Josh Palmer as well. Kyron Williams or Jameson Williams, rest of season. Oh, wow, the battle of the Williamses. I got to admit, I'm a little disappointed in how little movement there's been on the Jameson Williams front. He's a guy I drafted in every single league because I thought he was a free square this season. He kind of was. Like, I didn't invest anything really in Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams is I got him, I think, in the 12th round in pretty much every single league. But the last we heard 1 week ago, they said Jameson Williams is still at least a month away from joining the Lions. And I mean, that's getting pretty close to the fantasy football playoffs. That's like week 12, week 13. I was really hoping he'd be back like around next week, week 11. And I bet they similar to the DeAndre Swift thing, there's no reason for them to rush Jameson Williams back. So yeah, I'd probably go Kyron Williams, but it hurts my heart to say that. Hey Sam, Just traded DJ Moore and Schultz for Cordell Patterson and Christian Kirk. Thoughts? Yeah, I do like that. I think CPAT's in a really good spot on the Falcons. Their offensive line and rushing attack has been really good this season. I do like Christian Kirk too. I think he's on a similar value as DJ Moore. Also, what do you think about Gainwell? Over 12.5 rushing yards tonight. Yeah, so Gainwell only had, I was just looking at his game logs, talking through that. He only had 1 carry last week. That's a little bit scary. But he had at least 3 carries in the previous 4 games before that. I could easily see him going over 11.5 rushing yards. I think it's a pretty fair line, though. But yeah, as 14-point favorites, Owen, I would take the over. I don't love it, but I would take the over. My favorite prop tonight, though, is actually Devontae Smith, over 53.5 receiving yards. Pierce or Palmer? Got to go Pierce over Palmer. Hello, just need one answer, please. I got you, man. Wave God 1020. I got you in the TikTok live. All right, let's get back to some quick thoughts on this game. Yeah, so just let me talk through my must starts, fringe starts tonight. You got to be starting Jalen Hurts in almost every situation. I'm only playing Mahomes and Josh Allen ahead of him, and Lamar. I think I'd play over Jalen Hurts as well. I would also definitely play Miles Sanders tonight. Miles Sanders is playing the dead last run defense tonight. He's behind arguably the best offensive line in the NFL. I still think you have to start Dameon Pierce tonight too. Dameon Pierce is in sort of a low-key DJ Moore situation. Maybe it's not so low-key. Maybe it's pretty obvious to everyone that he's just the only talented player on his entire offense. And that's not great. It's not great for a running back to be the only talented player on your offense, but it is great for fantasy because he's locked into 18+ touches again tonight. I definitely think Goddard is a must start in almost all tight end situations as well. Only tight ends I'm playing over Dallas Goddard are Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, and Zach Ertz. But even Mark Andrews, I think you could bench for Dallas Goddard because we don't know for sure Mark Andrews is even going to play this week, especially with the Ravens bye next week. I do think Devontae Smith is closer to a fringe start than the rest of my must starts, but he's definitely startable tonight too. Bro, Cooks is out. I know, bro. It's pretty brutal, Ravi. Between my leagues, I have to play Sanders and Goddard and playing Eagles D, also starting Duvernay since Cooks is out. Yeah, I think that's fine. And I actually really like Eagles defense tonight too. Again, they're 14-point favorites in this game. And there's maybe not a less talented team than the Texans out there. I mean, they're starting receivers tonight are Phillip Dorsett and Chris Moore. I mean, these are legit practice squad level players as their starting receivers tonight. They're also trotting out Brevin Jordan and OJ Howard and Jordan Akins as like their playmakers tonight. Rex Burkhead. Like these are the Texans playmakers in this game. I really do believe if the Texans were to win this game, it would be one of the biggest upsets in NFL history. Traded Lamar for CPAT and Brady. Thoughts? I don't hate it. I don't love it either. Again, I really do like Lamar Jackson's playoff schedule. I do think he still has league-winning upside. But if you need a running back, I don't hate trading away quarterbacks to get receivers and running backs. Generally speaking, quarterbacks are not as valuable in single quarterback leagues simply because you can find close to similar value just on the waiver wire. Like, for example, Justin Fields. He was on the waiver wire in most leagues. Why is the app so high on Deebo Samuel? Because Deebo Samuel's been an absolute beast really over the last year and a half, 2 years. Deebo Samuel is averaging 14.4 fantasy points per game this season. He's also seen at least 7 targets in every single game except one this season. He's obviously less of a running threat, though, now. So I do think the CMC stuff brings him down a tiny bit in the rankings. I know you just said to start Devontae Smith over Palmer. Does Herbert being my QB change that? Preston, it only changes it if you feel like you're a huge underdog this week and like you really want to shoot for the upside. I do like stacking in general, even in season-long leagues. It does raise the ceiling, right? If Josh Palmer has a big game, there's a pretty good chance Justin Herbert also had a big game. So like if you want to shoot for the upside, you want to have a huge score this week, then yeah, that does change my answer. But if you're trying to play it safe, then I would go Devontae Smith and hedge your bets a little bit. Is Judy a sell high? He has had 2 good games. I don't hate selling Judy, though I will say the Broncos have an amazing rest of season schedule. I mean, for the receivers, it gets so much easier for them rest of season. Judy has been seeing some pretty valuable deep targets. I don't think he's necessarily a must sell. It depends what you can get for Jerry Judy, of course. But Jerry Judy, I was in the Jerry Judy over Cortland Sutton camp before the season, and it's going to be pretty close, I think, down the stretch between the two. But I still think I would prefer Cortland Sutton rest of season. But yeah, Jerry Judy, 19th in the NFL in air yards. He has seen the 7th most deep targets per game in the NFL. He actually has the 5th most unrealized air yards. So he's really not capitalized on a lot of the opportunities he's even seen. He's seeing a lot of just deep volume, which is good. for his ceiling. Hey, Sam, would you do Sutton and Swift for DJ Moore and Mostert full PPR? No, I don't think I would do that one. I feel like Sutton and DJ Moore really similar value still in my mind. Swift and Mostert, same thing. I still feel like Swift has a higher ceiling, though, than Mostert, especially with the Jeff Wilson trade. Lockett or Pittman, half PPR. Yeah, that one's pretty close this week as well. I do think I'd probably go Pittman. Yeah, I think I'd go Pittman over Lockett. He still saw a lot of targets. That's my question. I got you, Wave God 1020. Kittle for Montgomery or Herbert? Who would you choose? Kittle or Montgomery or Herbert? I'm assuming you mean Khalil Herbert here, not Justin Herbert. I don't like playing two tight ends. I would play David Montgomery over Herbert, though. Yeah, so I guess David Montgomery is my answer. To you, Sam, should I start Kyle Pitts or Zach Ertz? I'd be playing Zach Ertz over Kyle Pitts this week. Zach Ertz, we've already seen Zach Ertz have 70 yards, 10 targets against the Seahawks. First time he played, then the Seahawks have stopped zero. I'm talking zero tight ends this season. So, yeah, I do think that Zach Ertz is a pretty near must-start tight end in almost all situations, even with Kyle Pitts coming off his best game of the season. Sam, I'm in bye week hell. Yeah, Marino, I'm with you, man. I'm telling you, I'm starting some bleak rosters this week with the bye weeks because I do not look at bye weeks when I'm drafting. I think that's the right thing to do, but sometimes it doesn't feel that way when we get to week 9. And let me tell you who I'm starting on the squad. I think I'm starting Kadarius Toney on this team. I'm starting Terrace Marshall. I'm starting Rashad White, all on the same team. DeAndre Carter. I mean, it's bleak out there. I drafted the whole Broncos team though on that roster. I need to flex. MVS, Alec Pierce, Josh Reynolds, yuck. Yeah, I think it's between the first two guys. I don't really love Josh Reynolds all that much. I know he's been doing okay, but Khalif Raymond's also been eating into his workload a little bit. MBS is coming off a really big game. He at least has some big play potential. I still like Alec Pierce a decent amount too. I feel like Alec Pierce is safer, probably the safest of the three. MBS probably has the high ceiling. I'd go between one of those guys. Personally, I'd probably lean Alec Pierce though. What's up, Sam? What are your thoughts on Dalvin Cook rest of season? I mean, Dalvin's been looking pretty solid, man. I think he's a top 10 running back rest of season. He's one of the few running backs that really has some pretty elite value. We have him ranked number 10, exactly number 10 rest of the season in our projection. So yeah, I do like Dalvin Cook. Decent amount. Do I pick up Deshaun Watson or Daniel Jones? We're getting pretty close to Deshaun Watson returning. We're a couple weeks away now from Deshaun Watson coming back. It's hard to know exactly how good he's going to be. He looked horrible in the preseason. He's still going to be, I think, on a run first team. So yeah, I think I'd still probably go Daniel Jones over Deshaun Watson. Yeah, we are 4 weeks away from Deshaun Watson returning. I still can't believe his first game is against the Houston Texans. What number Mixon on the rest of season rankings? Yeah, Mixon's definitely much lower. Joe Mixon's at number 17 rest of season. He's behind Fournette. He's behind Aaron Jones. He's behind Nick Chubb. He's behind Mondre. He's behind Kenneth Walker. He's even behind DeAndre Swift rest of season. Though DeAndre Swift is really hard to rank rest of season, right? It's so much about his health. You're making a big guess about DeAndre Swift's health when you're ranking him rest of seasons, and that's definitely something hard to factor into the rest of season rankings. Do I play Ronnie Rivers or Boston Scott? I would play Boston Scott over Ronnie Rivers. Guys, get Ronnie Rivers out of your lineup. I saw someone in one of my leagues starting Ronnie Rivers, and I mean, he's probably gonna score 0 points. Like, I feel like Ronnie Rivers has a better chance at 0 points than he does at 10 points, and I don't say that lightly. Like, Ronnie Rivers is not a guy anyone had heard of literally before last week. Cam Akers is all of a sudden playing again. Kyron Williams is knocking on the door to play again. I want nothing to do with Ronnie Rivers. I mean, that guy should be on the waiver wire in all leagues. Hey, Sam, they will be up by so much. Kenneth Gainwell will score. I will bet you $15 he scores tonight. When they have been up and he got in the red zone touches, he will score. Shout me out when Gainwell scores. All right, we'll see about that. I will not accept your $15 wager, but I will give you a shout out on the live if Kenneth Gainwell scores. I do think Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott, though, again, you can see it scrolling on the bottom of the screen on the YouTube live. I do think they are fringe starts tonight. Hey, Sam, what can I get for JT? Yes, if you're trading away Jonathan Taylor, I really think you need to be trying to get a guy like Ramondre Stevenson. I think maybe you could do that trade relatively straight up. I think Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders, Michael Carter are some guys I would be targeting if you're trying to ditch JT. There's also a lot of receivers I like targeting in fantasy football. Right now, I dropping a video tomorrow about 10 players I'm buying and selling, and actually JT is one of the players I talk about selling in that video that will be dropping on YouTube, the YouTube channel tomorrow. Link to the YouTube channel, by the way, is right in the TikTok bio. But yeah, I really like buying Amon-Ra St. Brown and Christian Kirk right now in fantasy football as well. All right, why are you starting Pierce? Because Dameon Pierce has seen at least 18 touches in 5 straight games, and he's almost an auto lock for 18 plus touches again tonight. And in fantasy football, you got a guy that's going to see 18 plus touches. You kind of have to start him, regardless of situation. That's what the case is with Dameon Pierce. He's also just the only talented player on his team. Goddard or Everett, I would play Goddard over Everett. I would play Dameon Pierce versus Ramondre Stevenson. That one's actually pretty close. Let me pull up the running back rankings. My gut told me Dameon Pierce. I will say that. But my rankings are telling me Ramondre Stevenson is two spots ahead of Dameon Pierce. So really close one. But Mondre is seeing a lot of targets, and he is just in a better offense overall. Likely or Conklin, I still like Likely more than Conklin. I do think the Rashad Bateman injury does help Isaiah Likely a decent amount. I do think Isaiah Likely should be rostered in most leagues. All right, guys, I got time for a couple more questions. Then I will be wrapping up the live. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Always look forward to these Thursday lives and Sunday morning lives as well. Would you trade Eckler for CMC? Yes. I don't think there's a single player more valuable than Christian McCaffrey in fantasy football. I still think if we were redrafting in fantasy today, I'd be taking CMC number 1 overall. And I do feel good saying that because I did take CMC number 1 overall in a few of my best ball leagues. So I feel good about that. That's one of the few things I can lay my hat on from before the season. All right, pick 2, Gibson, Deion, Henderson, Foreman. I'm down bad. Yeah, so if Deion Jackson is definitely a must start if JT doesn't play. If JT plays, you can't really be playing Deion Jackson with all that much confidence. I would probably go Foreman, though. I'd probably go Foreman and Deion Jackson. I can't start Darrell Henderson at this point. Just traded Montgomery for Lockett and then traded the 7th round for Cordero. What do you think? I like it, Anthony. I like both those. I like both those, not going to lie. Do I trade Kelsey for DJ Moore? I had MT. No. Austin, that's not even close to a fair trade. Kelsey is significantly more valuable than DJ Moore. Kelsey's scoring more points per game than DJ Moore, and you get to play him in your tight end slot. And I promise you might not realize this because you have Travis Kelsey, but I promise you, everyone else, I mean, they are scraping to get tight end points in fantasy football. I can't tell you how many donuts people have had to eaten in their tight end slots this season. Just 0 point weeks at the tight end slot. And Kelsey's the exact opposite. He's going 20 plus almost every single week in the tight end slot. Huge advantage to have Travis Kelsey in your fantasy lineups. Thoughts on Terrace Marshall this week? Yeah, I'm starting him in one league. I do think Terrace Marshall is an interesting play. I think he had 8 targets? Something like 8 targets last week. Let me put something to make sure that's accurate. But he definitely saw his most volume of the season last week. 9 targets for Terrace Marshall. He had not seen more than 4 targets in the game before last week. And yeah, he played 90% of the snaps. The most he's played, the most targets he's seen. Terrace Marshall definitely has some interesting upside and floor this week. Thoughts on Pollard rest of the season? Any trade value? When Zeke is back, and I think he will be back probably this week, it's going to be, I think, what we've seen all season. So, yeah, there's value there. There certainly is value. There's some value, but it's not the value that like we saw last week. So, yeah, I think Pollard is more of like an RB 2/3. And Zeke is going to see a lot of the goal line work. He's going to see the bulk of the carries. That's just how they view Zeke in Dallas. It's not what is right. It's just what they're going to do. So, yeah, I think there is some value. So, with Pollard, but it's not going to be like his monster week that he just had without Zeke. Guys, that's my time. Thank you so much for tuning in. I would be playing Boyd over Jacoby. Happy PR. We'll answer that last one. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will be back live as always Sunday morning. Make sure you hit that follow button if you're watching live on TikTok. Hit the subscribe and like button if you're watching live on YouTube. Guys, time is the most valuable thing we have. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Make sure you check the YouTube tomorrow too. We'll be dropping a video about 10 players I'm buying and selling. Sully, I'll wait for you really quickly. Sully, I'll wait for you really quickly in the TikTok live. YouTube live. Have a great night. Thank you so much for tuning in and good luck tonight.